Welcome to the Escape Your Limits podcast special, where I'm joined by Emma Barry at the Boutique Fitness Solutions Summit in New York. Over the 2 days, we captured 9 short interviews with the founders and CEOs who share their stories about how they and their businesses have responded, evolved, and adapted over the last 2 years. In part 1 of the 2-part series, we speak to Kari Saitowitz, the founder of Fhitting Room, April Berg, the co-founder of the Aruna Project, Josh Biro, the owner of Nomad, Leizanne Ting from the CrushCamp, and Marci Resnick and Karin Walsh from inMotion Fitness and Wellness. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Escape Your Limits podcast, and if you do, then please give us a thumbs up and leave a comment so that we can get this out to more people. Thanks again for listening, and please enjoy.
Someone who has been through this whole boutique journey since really at the beginning, through the boom, through the bust, through the pandemic, and into what happens next. Let's welcome Kari Saitowitz, who's here in New York City, which is it's the founding hub of boutique fitness, really, when you think about it. We've just finished an incredible day with just legends of industry sharing everything, and that's been one of the themes. Everyone's got arms around each other, they're just sharing everything they have, because the biggest story is that we come back. Tell us a bit about Fhitting Room, which is an amazing brand, and we work with you also, and we love that. Tell us about, how hard has it really been? Give us the reality. No one talks numbers. New York's been horrific, so just give us that, and then we'll talk a little bit about future plans.
Absolutely, yeah. So New York is the epicenter of boutique fitness, but it was also the epicenter of COVID. So there was that. So Fhitting Room is a high-intensity interval training and strength training studio. I say kettlebells are our superpower. That's our big differentiating feature, is doing kettlebells safely in group classes. I started the business in 2013 in terms of studio doors opening. I personally worked on it for a year to get to that point. But so we've had studios open for 9 years. We had 3 studios reopen after COVID. I did just 1 month ago, after giving, we were open for about a year as of a month ago, post-COVID, closed one of the studios. I'll talk about why. But we also do have a subscription-based on-demand platform, which was launched pre-COVID. That was the summer of 2019 project. We launched live virtual classes 3 days after we closed our doors due to COVID, but they're still going strong, so we continue that, and we're opening our first suburban location next week in New Jersey, and it's a different business model, which we'll also talk about.
Okay. Sounds great. And when are you coming to LA? Come on, you got to go bi-coastal. You got to do it.
As soon as profit returns. Yeah. How about that?
That's a great. Tell us about profit. Are you prepared to share us some numbers?
Yeah, I'm happy to share.
Can I just jump in a little bit? When you started, what was it like then in contrast? Because I don't think you had much competition in the boutique space then, did you? You was telling us last night.
Yes, you're correct. So when I first started, one of the first exercises I did was a benchmarking study of what competitors priced their product at. And so I think my spreadsheet had 7 lines on it, maybe. There was 1 Barry's Bootcamp location in New York City, 2 Soul Cycles, 2 Flywheels, 2 Physique 57s, and that may have been it. And so today, I believe ClassPass would tell you that there are something like 3,000 fitness stores in New York City, or something to that effect. I think it was 1,000 not too long ago, but I think there's been a huge explosion even since then. So from a competitive standpoint, there was no ClassPass when I started this business, so everybody who was coming in the door was buying direct at no discounts. There was very little competition, so if you had a clean space and a great class, you had full classes. And so, totally different environment versus where we are today.
And instructors, what was that like back then? Were they fairly easy to come by?
Well, so instructors, for me, with our modalities, every one of our instructors has to be a certified personal trainer. That's actually one of the other big differentiators between Fhitting Room and a lot of other classes. And so the best hiring grounds were big box gyms. So I used to search social media and troll people who were hashtagging kettlebells or kettlebell workout or anything with kettlebells, and then looking at their places of employment. And if they were at a big box gym and they loved kettlebells, they were my sweet spot because I knew that our business model could pay them more than what the box they were working at was paying them. And I could also offer them a space to do their personal training sessions for free, so long as there were no classes in session. So that was like a big recruiting carrot. Yeah.
Wow. So perhaps can you peel back some of the layers, and how was COVID? You mentioned you were going to talk about the club that you closed, the studio that you decided to close, and then you decided to open elsewhere. Tell us about that and tell us some numbers around that.
Yeah, of course. So in December of 2019, which if anybody can remember back that long, it was pre-COVID, but very close to COVID, I held what we called a Fit Rally. So it was an internal full business team meeting to roll out our growth strategy, which was called Paint the World Green. So green is Fhitting Room's signature color. And I shared a lot of data on the industry with my team and some insights. And the conclusion was basically that I love our experience. I think that what we do really well is train trainers and program incredible classes and build community and brand around it. But my conclusion was that can be done inside many four walls, and that the standalone boutique business model, there'll be many people who disagree with this with their booming franchise growth, was getting harder and harder to sustain with the rising price of talent and real estate, and that there weren't that many markets that had the population density and the willingness to pay of a New York City. So my thinking was our growth strategy was going to be to offer to grow the brand by bringing our experience to other people's facilities. So that was December 2019. COVID happened. I didn't realize those other facilities would be people's living rooms, but basically it was. And it became rooftops and pretty much any place else. But our new location that I referenced in New Jersey, we're inside of a new fitness concept called Drop Fitness. And it is basically an app-driven, download the app, now you're a member, open gym space, which you can use during off-peak hours just for downloading the app. But then there's also 4 boutique fitness brands that will be teaching classes under that same roof. Each one has a dedicated area and or studio. So the Fhitting Room studio inside of Drop Fitness looks just like one of our company-owned stores, designed by the same architect even. We are training all the trainers. We provide all of the programming, but it's a straight-up revenue share for Fhitting Room. And Drop Fitness employs the talent, they paid for the build out, it's their business model, they control pricing, the customer relationships. So
That's a
it'll be
new model.
really interesting. Yeah. So
So on that Drop
Yes.
Fitness, because I've heard it a few times, the other lady who was with us last night who has the, is it Pilates or?
Physique 57 bar,
Yeah,
Jennifer?
bar.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's in there, isn't she?
Yes, that's right.
And so it's essentially like it's a shell with 4 boutiques inside it. Is that right?
Yeah, so it is a gorgeous facility.
Yeah, I'm
and
trying
so it has a kids club, it has a smoothie bar, it has
Okay.
open gym space, it has personal training space. All of that is Drop Fitness. They created it, design, control everything. Right. And then there's 3 group fitness rooms. So one is Physique 57, which will teach their bar classes. One is Fhitting Room for our strength and high intensity classes. One is Humming Puppy, which is yoga. And then Mile High Run Club will teach classes in the treadmill space of the open gym space.
Right. And then how does the sort of membership model and do you kind of share the people that come cross-sell to the different modalities, or how does that work?
Yeah, so everybody will have to download the Drop Fitness app to join, the Drop community as a member. And then from there, they can buy class packages and or class memberships, which is all done through the Drop Fitness app. So the benefit for studios is there's all these shared resources, right? So in the traditional studio model, everybody's paying their own front desk, everybody's paying their own cleaning crew, everybody's paying their own software, marketing, you name it. So in this case, because there's so many shared resources, the classes can be offered cheaper than the neighboring standalone studios.
And I guess probably more profitable as well. I would.
Well, and for me, I have no expenses, only a rev share. So there's only upside.
So risk on. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great. So you mentioned, so did you move out of the facility because of real estate or was it some other reason?
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about the Upper East Side. So the Upper East Side was actually Fhitting Room's very first neighborhood. Our first studio was on the Upper East Side. About 3 years in, we moved to a bigger location on the Upper East Side in a building that was actually all stacked of different fitness concepts. So we were one of 4 fitness concepts in a building that was about 15 blocks away from the original studio. The year that we closed the original studio and opened the bigger studio, we basically got twice as much square footage for the same price because we went from a ground floor to a 4th floor. The business was incredibly successful in that space. Every year since, it declined. At first, it was a small decline, then it was a little bit of a bigger decline, and by the time we got to the year before COVID, it was barely above break even. So part of the issue was competition just intensified like crazy on the Upper East Side of New York. It's like every fitness studio all of a sudden had 1 to 2 locations in that same neighborhood. We heard all day today, the percentage of people working out has not changed in decades.
Really?
So you have billions more doors where you can do fitness, all in the same very small geography. Even if each new concept takes just 1 client out of a class once a week, over time, when there's hundreds of new concepts in your neighborhood, that really depletes you. I think on top of that, going from a ground floor to a 4th floor really hurt. A big part of our new client acquisition is people just visibility, brand awareness, people sticking their heads in while they're going down the street and learning about the business. And so we went from a main avenue to a side street, a ground floor to a 4th floor. I think that hurt us. In addition, that particular neighborhood coming out of COVID was where we saw the highest percentage of our clients that moved out of the city were from that particular neighborhood. So there were a lot of forces. The business was, again, it was already, compromised a lot even pre-pandemic. We had a very friendly and collaborative landlord, so that actually really was painful to close that location because they really partnered with us and were very fair. But just in terms of, we had to focus very limited resources into the highest potential parts of the business. So we made that, it was a tough decision, but it allows us to focus the human resources and limited financial resources into the parts of the business that we believe have higher profit potential.
And what are those then? What are those areas that you'll be?
Yeah, so the other physical locations for one, so we still have studios on the Upper West Side and Flatiron in New York City, investing in the training for this suburban location, which is our first licensed partnership. To the extent that we see suburban acceptance of the concept and success with that model, then I will want to replicate that. As much as I can. And then we're also building out right now our first external facing certification. So since Fhitting Room's opened, it's always been a place where other trainers come and work out. Some of our trainers have been recruited by the biggest names in fitness, which is a huge compliment because we train people incredibly well and they're just the best of the best. And so knowing that there are so many instructors out there who are trying to build their own brands privately now, whether it's virtual or independently in physical locations, and gyms that offer group fitness but don't have incredible training programs. We are launching a certification for how to teach kettlebells in small groups and/or classes, which is, I believe, a huge white space, but also a huge opportunity. So,
it's amazing. That's great. So how's your feeling going forward? We've been through some rough times. We're going forward. Overall, there's been a lot of optimism. We've had over 400 people at the conference here in New York. Of course, tough times. Everyone's been through it. Everyone's exhausted. We've been stretched in new ways. But what would you say is your outlook, I guess?
So I think from an industry perspective, I always say fitness is large and growing. Yeah. That's an exciting space to be. I do think, I have hope that we can increase that penetration rate of the percentage of people who work out, and that health scares like COVID help people realize that. I do think it's going to be a slower rebound. We all have seen that bar chart of the fitness industry, the recession-proof industry, in like every investor deck and analyst deck ever. And I think COVID was incredibly disruptive. I personally think that there's going to be a big sort of like disassembly of many of the brands and constructs as we know them, and then a rebuilding. But I think that we'll get there. I think it will be bigger and better, but I think right now people want to have fun. Like I think fitness has to play in that. It's filling my bucket in terms of my social connection, in terms of my social wellness, in terms
feel
of
good
yes.
not so much because it was very hard for a while,
yes.
wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
like it's not cool to like work hard, play hard right now, even though like, I mean, that's kind of like the way I live my life. But it's not cool right now. Right now, it's much more cool just to like live your best life and be happy and do what makes you happy. And so I think for my brand and all of our fitness brands, we have to move our brands into that territory in people's wallet and mind.
Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much
Amazing.
for, I know we
you.
grabbed you before you were running out the door.
Yes.
So thanks very much. Best
Thanks.
of wishes.
Thank you so much.
Always.
You're amazing.
So much
Keep
fun
going.
to talk to
Keep
you.
going. Leizanne, welcome to Boutique Fitness Solutions, the summit here in New York City. Now, you join us from Calgary.
Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Hey.
Now we do say
hey.
It's unfortunate, but we do actually do say A.
Now, tell me, why are you here?
So I'm the head coach at CrushCamp over there in Calgary, Alberta, and we're here to just learn more about the industry, to see what we're doing right, maybe things that we have opportunities to improve on, and like the fitness mecca of the world here in New York. So.
Absolutely, and it absolutely is. Now, Canada has been a shit show during COVID, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's kind of managing it, and what's interesting about the shit show and whatnot is that it's actually brought the community together in terms of like rather than us being pitted against other studios and whatnot. It's been more about how can we help each other because we're actually in this together. You had mentioned it in your sessions, like you can't get through this without linking arms and making this happen. So whether it's for government advocacy to be able to loosen restrictions, or now we're moving towards advocacy towards, part of health insurance and health plans to make this a tax recoverable kind of thing to spend money on is kind of what we're moving towards, and we can't do it as a singular studio, but being able to work with others it's what's brought us together. It's a very Canadian thing to just
it's been reflected around the world, I would say, also with the associations. I've just come from Europe, same thing. Europe Active doing the same thing, putting their arms around the whole industry. Ursa, of course, with Liz Clark coming in, camping out on Capitol Hill, and Ursa, her big focus in her first 100 days is to pull everyone into the same tent and then sort of, play the political game, which you also need to do. But also all boats rise, right, as we all get stronger as an industry.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about your concept and then what particularly, like we're in the Building a Badass Boutique Summit today. What are you learning? What are you going to take back?
So our particular format is that we're a running studio primarily.
Right.
We do have strength training and yoga as a supplementary to be able to enter that, but we are kind of core towards, we use skill mills and we have strength programming for the floor, really similar to that kind of HIIT kind of stuff with a really big focus on running technique and whatnot. Like today, what we're really playing for the Building a Badass Boutique session is really just how are you really honing in on your why is what you had mentioned, and being very clear on that, because that just trickles down into your brand and what you end up selling to everybody else.
What would you say are your biggest challenges right now? Like, is it staff? Is it content? Is it bringing members back? Like, what are you feeling?
Right now, it's the challenges like getting over that nervousness that the pandemic has kind of instilled in a lot of people, like people that haven't touched a weight in 2.5 years, and like being able to cater to them, but also like those folks that have stuck with us through the online stuff, and how do we challenge them and whatnot. And it's like you had mentioned in the course, it's like it's omni-channel. How are people getting fitness, and how do we fit into that in people's lives? It's very different from what it was in 2019, and kind of really honing in on what our identity is now. Because something that we like to talk about in the studio is your old PB, your old PR, that old you is actually gone, and that's okay. And it's going to be the same for us. And just figuring out where our personal best is right now and how we can cater to people.
Thank you for supporting the Escape Your Limits podcast. If you're thinking about creating a unique and engaging fitness space to take your fitness to the next level, then we have you covered. Escape Fitness design and manufacture some of the most innovative, attractive, and durable functional training and free weight equipment used by many of the best trainers and fitness brands across the globe. As a valued listener, we are offering you a 10% discount off many of the products on our website. You can check out the full range by going to escapefitness.com and use the code DUMBBELL. That's escapefitness.com using the code DUMBBELL. That's it from me. Please enjoy the rest of this interview.
Is this your first summit?
Yes, it is.
Oh, great. And this is day one. So tomorrow we've got the full day where we're all together. Today everyone's sort of in a masterclass or the CEO summit. So what would you say to people who are perhaps considering maybe coming next year?
I think just being around other people that understand the same pain points or even the successes that you have. I think even within our session that we had today, it's been so good to hear people from different parts of the country be like, you know what, that is a pain point that we have too. And this is how we can kind of get around it. And because sometimes you can kind of feel alone, you know, within your own spot. Being an entrepreneur, you definitely feel alone, but being with like-minded individuals in a place that innovates, in an environment that innovates, is very exciting.
And it's wonderful to have the backdrop as New York, is it not?
Oh.
I mean, we're right on Times Square. And, I'd have to say, I have noticed that people they're using more eye contact than New Yorkers used to, and they're certainly walking a little slower, but it's really wonderful to be in this fabulous city.
Yeah, it's the energy here, for sure. It's being around this many humans again is very energizing and whatnot, so I would say to those people that are considering it, just like, come here for that experience, and you never know who you're going to meet and what you're going to pull away from it. That's
exactly right. I'm going to let you run because I know that you're doing a Shake Shack. She's going to chuck a burger before our afternoon session.
Because it's all about balance.
It's all about balance.
It's all about balance, right?
That's great. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Time. Thank you. Ladies, we got Les Mills lovers in the house.
Yes.
Yay. Who are you? What on earth are you doing here in New York City at the Boutique Fitness Summit here?
Well, we are inMotion Fitness and Wellness, and we just had a short train ride over.
Super
We're
convenient.
in Princeton, New Jersey, and we own a boutique fitness, group fitness studio where we offer multiple class formats. So we want to have the best of all worlds for our members, as well as personal training, nutrition, and wellness coaching. And we are a hybrid studio. So our philosophy or motto, I guess, is your workout your way. So our members can either come in and take a class live. They can hop on Zoom. Let's say they're home with kids or they're on vacation, or they're stuck in isolation because they have COVID. Guess what?
It's only
They can
happened
still-
for quite some time now.
Right. They can still get their workout in. And we have our content library, which is updated daily. So
Right,
again,
and you've got a large content library, right? There's a lot going up.
Hundreds.
yeah, we have probably over 500 videos in the library.
Okay.
That they can access. Like I said, they want to work out, 4 a.m.,
On
11
vacation.
p.m.
On vacation.
Yeah.
Someone was up in the Northern Lights and was like, I'm doing the content
Yeah,
library.
and she literally was doing
Yeah.
it
From
while
the
watching
Northern Lights.
Northern
Oh my goodness. That's
Yes.
living your best life. Hashtag,
Yeah.
right. Now, Karin, you're known for your voice. Tell us about that.
Oh, I guess I am
Oh.
known for my voice. I do teach yoga, so that has something to do with it.
You know how to breathe.
I'm more of the mind body, and Marci's more of the burpees, so we complement each other
I'm the drill
well.
sergeant. She's
Yes.
the
I can see that.
But
The yin
you
and the
kill them
yang.
with kindness. There's still difficulty there.
Yeah.
But yes, no, I try the calming voice, I guess.
That's right. Now tell us, how's it been? Like, how are you finding the markets coming back? Because, it's different. It's been patchy right throughout the United States.
Well, I mean, we just opened over the summer. The greatest time to open a boutique fitness, any type of fitness studio. Not the best time, but it gave us an opportunity to kind of work out our kinks and get a feel for what worked, what didn't work. But for us, I mean, we're just building.
Okay.
So, it's not been easy. It's been hard to, we're located in an office complex. So
Okay.
we don't have that
Footfall of all the
Traffic.
workers.
Yes.
so
Some
we
of them
got to
haven't
work
come
a little
back.
bit harder,
Right.
where we utilize Instagram and Facebook, and we do a lot of community events. One of our missions also is it's very important for us to give back to the local community. So
Okay.
we do a lot of fundraisers. for local breast cancer charities. We just we did a fundraiser for Ukraine. We're doing
Animal
a fundraiser
shelter.
for animal shelters.
Share My Meals.
Meals. This actually tomorrow. So we try to partner with the local community and get the word out that way.
Right. And I'd say community's been it's probably one of the mainstays of boutique fitness, isn't it? Because we're dealing with smaller groups, very passionately following a certain way. And so that doesn't surprise me at all. What have you taken? We're day one into this conference. What have you taken from so far? I mean, obviously, I'm spending some time with you in the building of Badass Boutique. What have you learnt so far? What are you excited about getting back and building?
Well, I feel in Badass Boutique, I feel like just listening to the other boutique owners, like you realize you're in the same boat, and everybody's struggling at something.
Yeah.
Right? And I think one of the reasons we wanted to come here was to pick others' brains, in the market, whether that be a Pilates or an Orange Theory, or everybody has similar issues. So to just get more ideas for solutions, and how we can move forward.
And how you can best use your limited resources. Because, especially at least myself, coming from a larger facility pre-COVID to now smaller, I mean, everything is smaller. So, gone are the classes of 50 to 60 people, which truthfully for me is fabulous. But adjusting that mindset to still grow your business and still have a thriving business in a smaller boutique setting. So it's really kind of interesting just to learn how to be more intentional probably with how you go about attracting those clients and being really specific in who those people are.
Yeah, we've talked a lot today around how people are coming back in different ways. They've got a certain belief set. There's certain ways people aren't feeling safe necessarily. There's more distancing. And we've been held sort of away from our old behaviours for long enough to create new ones. We talked a lot about that today. But I do think there's going to be, there'll be more people coming back, and there's a broader church as well. So talk to us a little bit about, if a person was going to come to this, what do you think they would take away from a conference like this?
Like I said, I think just picking other people's brains and finding out how they're overcoming similar problems, and they might have something that you never ever thought of that's just completely random. I'm particularly excited. Well, I was excited for your workshop, but I'm very excited to meet with the coaches tomorrow. Yes. I'll be here doing the one-on-one sessions, and just listening to all the lineup for tomorrow sounds really fabulous. So, I mean, listen, it's like Les Mills. Anytime you ever go to one of those workshops, I've never been to a bad Les Mills workshop, right? You always take away some pearl of wisdom, something to make you better. It's not gonna hurt you.
Yeah, and I'd probably just pile on there, and I think I've been to a lot of events this year, and what's really nice about this is the intimate nature, and you're talking about one-on-one coaching opportunities. There is no way you're going back without a much more solid plan, because you've actually spent time with someone who knows a lot. We're all talking about, none of us know the answers, but we can certainly help, and you've got to find that from the member. We've talked a lot about the member, we've talked about hyper-personalisation, we've talked about following the data, all of those things. What about for you? What is something?
I think it's just really kind of helpful to get back together with people and see not so much why, but how you first came up with this idea, boutique fitness. And, it just reinvigorates and reminds you that there are possibilities out there, and that there are so many ways. And, just even hearing some of the statistics today about, just in the last setting, 95% of people out there work out less than 150 minutes in an entire week. And when you think about that, that's a huge market of people, and just being, again, I guess back in intention of how you can reach them, and getting those insights from people in the sales industry, in the other industries, about how to find them. There is a huge opportunity. It's just very much a new normal.
It is a new normal. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the show, and enjoy New York City.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
April, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I found out about you. I was given a lovely, as they call in America, tote bags.
Okay.
What's a tote bag?
Yeah, right? That is what we call them, isn't it?
What is that? Just out of interest, what's tote?
It totes anything you want
around
with you. Yeah, it's like you can tote it around.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's how I use it. It might not be...
It's a very American kind of word, I guess.
It really is. It really is. Very generic term for basically everything.
Right. Yeah. So it's not, but they're not. There's a little bit more to them, isn't there, than just
Yes.
just a regular bag. So
Yes.
start off by telling me, how did you get into, I guess, making things like bags and stuff? What was the motivation? Do you come from fashion or what?
I mean, I always joke that I'm the bag lady because I have a bag for everything. And so I love design, I love fashion and all of that kind of thing, just naturally. And athleisure is like wonderful for women, and especially after the last couple of years, everybody does, is in yoga pants and whatnot. But really what happened was actually finding a very, very large problem in an area of the world that we did not anticipate finding, and kind of turned the trajectory of our whole world around and what we were doing for work. So basically, Aruna is an athleisure brand where we free and employ women from sex trafficking and provide them with sustainable employment. And so they create all of the athleisure products, and then so through purchasing all of those products, it goes right back into our freedom business so that we can free and employ more women.
So how did you come across that then? What were you doing at the time that made you sort of find that?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So actually, we were traveling for work over to India specifically, creating an international partnership leadership program with students. And when we were headed there, this was about 15 years ago, we saw on a little news ticker line that 12 minors had been rescued from a brothel. And it was before a lot of the awareness was happening here. We were like, what in the world is going on? And so
that was in India, was it?
That was in India
Right.
specifically. And that was where we were headed, to the city we were going to. And so we did a lot of research to find that the very city we were going to is one of the largest red light districts in all of Asia. And so, obviously we were like, what is happening, and very intrigued by it. And so we found the name of a contact of an organization that works directly with women coming out of the brothels. And when we got in contact with them, they said, to understand it, you have to come see it. And so they took us in. To give context, in a small 2 square mile area, there's estimated over 15 to 20,000 sex slaves.
Wow.
And so when we walked in, you can imagine 2 square miles is not very big. And so we stepped in and walked up this very worn, dark stairwell with rats, and it was just disgusting. And so you get up into this open corridor where down a hallway, just woman after woman with nothing but a pull curtain and a mattress behind her. And just the look in their faces of just complete emptiness. And it was forever changing. And it was just, to look slavery, modern day slavery in the face like that, was just nothing I was prepared for. And so we could leave that place. We were free to leave. But we just couldn't forget it. And so we actually took our whole family back and embedded in the area for a number of months and just did a ton of research and did, mission, vision, values from like organizations to the women themselves of what is happening on the whole scale of when a girl is trafficked, rescued, rehabilitated, and reintegrated, who is doing what. And it was very clear from that employment was a big key, because the re-trafficking rates of a girl who was rescued, so there are organizations doing raids and rescue and that type of thing, but the percentage rate was over 85% returning right back into it.
And that was financial reasons predominantly.
Yeah,
is it?
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, because you're taking the most unskilled, gender-biased people on the planet, and they're competing against extreme poverty, and other people. So when we came back to the U.S., we did a lot of research in the U.S. market, because we're like, okay, so we need to create employment. What are we going to create? What are they going to make? So we did a lot of research in the U.S. market, because, that the market here, it can be much more profitable. And so when we did that, the athleisure industry was starting to boom. And also just the culture shift of the social impact was starting to become a thing too, where people don't just want to give money, but they wanted to be a part of something bigger, and their money to go towards something and meaningful when they buy something. And so that was when we decided to create more of an athleisure product. And so through that is when we have designers on our team. And so we design for the U.S. athleisure market. We'll source ethical fabrics. So it's like, Blue Sign certified, recycled nylons, and all of that type of thing. And then we work with our artisans specifically. And so once we create a tech pattern, they receive it and they create it. And then it comes to us from that. And so,
where do you get the materials from? Are you importing the materials or from places like India? Is it? Or?
So we do a few different things. So it's kind of like we have multiple different entities. So it's kind of like we took nonprofit and for-profit and merged them together to kind of create a full integrated system. And so what that looks like is India specifically, when we first started there in the business, we have training centers in the heart of the red light areas. Where our staff go in and create relationship and programs and trauma counseling, skill and trade development, basically everything to get them to understand and rebuild their dignity and realize that they're not property to be owned. And so once we can help secure her freedom, we move her into transitional housing and she steps into our freedom business. And so there's like multiple entities there. And so once she gets into our freedom business, she has above a living wage and retirement, healthcare benefits, all of that, all in a community of care. And so that is where then they create the product. So it's imported. So we find it in different places like Taiwan and South Korea typically has better practices. And so we need to make sure that from the creating of fabric, it's also sustainable as far as labor practices and that type of thing too. And so then once it gets to our production unit, then they create the product, and then they ship it back to us here in the U.S. And then with that, before we push it into the U.S. market, we are able to hire women locally as well out of sex trafficking.
That are doing that in the U.S. as well?
Yeah.
Right.
So we partner with a bunch of organizations as well as the local police and all of that to make sure that we can employ women directly out of that so they're sustainable too. It looks different in both areas, obviously, but all of it is to ultimately create more freedom for all these women.
And the profits go back into, or is it all of the profits, or how does that work? Julian was kind of telling me that's mainly what the purpose of the business is, to kind of provide these women with work. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's how we combine both the nonprofit and the for-profit, so they can work together, so they can sustain both. So I like to call it the backwards business model, because we're really taking products and all of the purchasing of products and all of that people are engaged in goes right back into all the efforts so that we can free and employ more women. So the purchasing of a bag, athleisure bag, goes right back into our business so that, it pays the wages and all of that kind of thing too for them.
So it sounds like a huge operation. Like, was it just you and your partner that did that, or did you get investment, or did you were you doing something similar to previously? How did you kind of go from that to this?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, we actually, so my husband was a teacher, so he was in education and I was a nurse. Oh, wow. So not really any business background.
Or manufacturing.
There's a lot of things, not manufacturing, none of that, which that would have been really helpful. But very entrepreneurial, bent with us too. And so, and then just a heart to want to help. And so it was just something that we were very committed to. And when there's something like that, it was basically, when we first saw it, I was pregnant with our daughter. So we have 3 kids. And it was one of those things where we were committed to, if this was our daughter, who would we want fighting for her, kind of thing. And so that was the driving factor for me, and I always think of it as though, like, these women don't have a choice and their voices have been taken from them. And so I want to give back their voice and their choice. And so, every woman should have the freedom to choose what she does and who she is. And so that was kind of the driving factor for me and for us to really make impact. And so I want my daughter to grow up and her to choose what she wants to do. And she has that freedom. And so the thought that there's so many girls and women who still don't have a choice and it's totally taken from them. So that was kind of the driving factor in that. And the way that the way that I'm designed and wired, I guess, is just, if I don't know the answer, which I didn't know a lot of answers, and have the answers for things of how to do this, we ask a lot of questions. And so there are people who do know how to make it work. So finding a lawyer who can do international, business and all of that, and just asking people who know what they're doing and talking about and making it work. And the one thing that we were intentional from the beginning was we didn't want to just be a give back organization, but to have kind of the full piece of it to truly see if that can make a difference with the freedom side. And so what we're seeing, like I had mentioned, the percentage rates of girls being re-trafficked, we're seeing over an 85% success rate.
Wow.
And so I think that goes into the full scale of it. And so yes, that's where the nonprofit comes in. So the donations come in, go directly to the efforts of the training center and the freeing process to then step into the production unit and the business. So they kind of all go into each other and can feed each other. So no investment and all of that kind of stuff, but just people who want to make a difference and then give to the cause that goes right back into all the work to then free and employ more women.
Has there been any sort of stories in particular that I suppose have inspired you and other people that have been involved as to, it sounds like on the surface that it's a terrible thing anyway, but has there been any kind of individuals that have really kind of, sort of made you feel that you're on the right track with what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I have so many. So one of the things that we have that's really cool in our office here in the U.S. is we have all of the photos of all the girls that we've employed and that have come through our care. And so the whole wall, and that is our purpose. So I could tell you every single story of every single girl, but one in particular, she was actually born in the brothel. And so her mom was abused daily, and she was born. So typically when you're born in the brothels, you are raised under the bed that your mom is abused. And so we were able to, this was a few years ago, we were able to secure her freedom. And through her and we didn't know this at the time, but in a matter of like a few months, we just make up different days, like celebrating Girls' Day, or whatever it might be, just to celebrate and to give them something to look forward to, once they're in freedom and in our care. We were going around and people were just sharing about, what they've been up to or what they did over the break. And she had been saving her money after the time that she's been with us for a few months. And she was like, I went in and I rescued my mom. And so she went back in and secured her mom's freedom and helped her mom get out. And then a year later, we were there just visiting and all of that, and went to lunch with her at her place with her mom. And these two other women kept coming in, and it's India, so we're like, it's just everybody lives together, very communal. And so we asked when the others had stepped aside, and here her mom, after her freedom, went in and rescued two more women out. And so it's one of those things where when we help secure freedom for one girl, it multiplies to at least 3-4 people. And so it's pretty incredible to see if you give somebody an opportunity and a hand up, what can happen through that. And so that's one of those stories where, and it's incredible. And the dignity that's restored, just giving them employment and creating beautiful products that they're very proud of. And I'll tell you a cool piece of that, of what we do. And so you saw our catalog, and all the products. It's very cool athleisure products. But inside all of the bags in the liner are the names of the artisans who are freed and employed with us. So when you buy a product, you're part of a freedom story. So we really try to be intentional, because it can seem so daunting and far away and high numbers and impossible to be a part of. And so that's why we're like, everybody, it's down to the human impact. It's like they have a name.
Yeah.
It's an individual, it's a person.
So if people are interested and want to have a look, buy them, how are you selling and distributing the product? I know you've done some stuff for this event where they've kind of, you got some basic bags here, and I've seen the more nicer quality ones that you do. Well, not nice quality, they're all nice quality, but the standard bags and the free ones and then the non-free ones.
Totally.
Tell us a bit about, sales and distribution of it.
Yeah. So we kind of wanted to set it up so it's pretty much can offer anything a person is looking for, we can kind of help in that. So anything from you just want to raise funds for a cause, absolutely. We can help, tell stories and all of that type of thing. But as far as the products go specifically, we have customized bulk options. And so like you saw the canvas totes that we gave, all the attendees and that type of thing. And so our artisans create each one of those and hand screen print them and all of that. So
and you put logos on.
We can put logos, we've done companies, we partner with marathons, we've done, all different kinds of things that you would want. We do headbands, and there's different types of bags that we can do as well. And so that's one of the entryways into our products. And then we also have, we do wholesale. So if there's any stores or if they can, keep it, and we have pretty low minimum, so it's not that hard to make it, and to get there. And so we offer the wholesale for all of our products. And then we also, have different solutions where, let's say you can't house things in your studio or, whatever that might be you're building. We can house it ourselves and manage inventory and then just drop ship to the customer and all the back end side, and you can just promote that into their customers and everything. So it's pretty much all solutions. And then we're also direct to consumer. So.
Right. And what countries are you selling this into? Is it just the United States, or you do anything internationally as well?
Right now it's just the U.S. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a whole other thing we're hoping to get into, but there's a lot that goes into that too. So we're a pretty young company, and so
how long have you been going now?
For about 6 years.
Okay. Right. So if anyone internationally wants to be a distributor, then they can connect you and
absolutely. Please let me know.
It's a wonderful story. Well, it's a sad story, but it's it's wonderful in terms of what you've been able to do. And the people that you're impacting, and we'll let as many people know as we can, and I really wish you guys a lot of success. And also, it's they're very cool designs. So.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it. We think so. We know I'm biased, but we really like it. Yeah, it's really cool to see. Freedom Restored is an unbelievable thing. And so while it is a very dark, serious topic, there's a lot of really cool stories and things happening on the positive side. So
Well, thank you very much. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
And get some bags, get some internet. If you're listening in England or wherever, then pick up the phone.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for your time.
Josh,
hello.
You have welcome. Now you have a hat on, but you have many hats. So here we are at New York City, Boutique Fitness Summit. It's the Summit from Boutique Fitness Solutions. Back after a couple of years. You've been in the industry a long time, and you do a lot of things. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the short story is I grew up in a yoga family, so I kind of ended up in the yoga industry.
San Francisco?
I would visit San Francisco. I'm from West Coast Canada originally, so my dad was into yoga, but San Francisco was like one of the closer hubs we'd end up going to. But I actually hated yoga.
Right, because your parents made you do it, or
they didn't make me, but I was the quintessential hockey playing Canadian. So my concern was ice skating and beer. It wasn't really yoga. So ironically, that's what got me into it, because then when I finished playing, it was the thing that gave me sort of peace, and I felt better in my body and all the stuff that we hear. So fast forward another decade after that, and after building studios, owning my own studio with my wife, selling it, then we went traveling full time in an overland RV with our kids in tow.
That's pretty cool.
And I think we stopped counting studios at 125 or something. So we had this unique moment where we got to experience managing, teaching, owning, selling, and then being on the ground. And inevitably you have a business conversation. So that's how I ended up being a yoga business coach.
Wow.
Yeah. And then now I am also working with the company Walla, who is the talk of the software industry right now. I think they're the up and coming platform for boutique fitness, especially class-based. Yeah. Yeah.
And why don't you tell us a bit about that? Because we had a chat just before. I mean, some of the features and the way that you're thinking about it is coming from all the pain points of having done all those things you're talking about, right?
It's actually why I've kind of thrown my hat in the ring with them. I have no knocks on anyone else in the industry. We partner with lots of them, our clients. In my group, the Yogapreneur Collective, are using all sorts of different platforms, and they're all great. But this is the first time that right from the ground up, the founder, Laura, and then having me involved and other people, they're like everyone on the team is someone who has owned a business, who teaches in the business, who like understands the daily grind and the friction points that you would have, and really like why you would get into this. Because you could categorize everyone who's getting into boutique fitness as a passionpreneur. You're not getting, like, no one says, like, the reason I started this is I love business. Like, that's not the primary motivator to start out. So what comes with that territory is that when you are using a software, it's not a product that you're buying. It's a partnership you have. I have people in my collective, they've been on MindBody for 22 years. And so it really, like, every element of how they operate and their business acumen and how they've grown in their business functionally goes through the software that they're partnered with as well. And now we're in what I would call the digital era, where it's just understanding that the playing field is virtual and digital. Like, even my 80-year-old father-in-law has like the newest iPhone. I always joke he can't do anything on it, but he's got
but he has it. First step.
But he knows, like, the way he's going to communicate with someone, the way he's going to look something up, the way he's going to schedule something, find something, book something, buy something, it's on that phone. So gone are the days where people just walk and sign up for something, which means you really have to look at, yes, the real value point is that human-to-human interaction in the class. Nothing would take away from that. But I am going to experience your business way before I physically step foot into the space. And the platform is a component of that.
Yeah.
And how you interact with it. Like, how easy can I book? How easy do I find your class? Do you have an app that works and does the things that not that you wanted to do as a business, that I as a consumer wanted to do?
So why don't you unpack some of how did you solve some of the solutions? Because there's a lot, I mean, there's like 100 million thousand platforms continue to pop up.
Sure.
What have you solved for us?
And just on that, because I was curious, like, do you think that some of the other platforms constrain? So you're obviously a coach. I'm sort of trying to understand that yoga thing. So I suppose as a coach for yoga studios, do you find that some of what the regular platforms do kind of constrain what you should be doing and sort of prevent, if you could kind of build it and mold it as you wanted to, would you do it differently based on what you should be doing? Or, are those software systems kind of limiting what you should be doing as a business person? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. Yes and yes and yes. I mean, all of it. So the quote that I'm just like obsessed with recently is, I think it's a Henry Ford quote. He said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they'd say faster horses.
Right.
So it's the concept that you do need to listen to the industry and the market about what you should build in software. But I am not a software builder personally. I understand the pain points that I have as an operator and that my clients have as a coach. So what really has to happen, and this is why the best listeners are the ones who are going to produce the best product, it's listening to what's being said, what the problems are, interpreting that, filtering that through your knowledge is how you can actually build a solution for it, and then putting a solution on the table which makes me better at my business. Rather than me saying to you, it would be cool if in the checkout, like, this checkbox was there, and then you build that. That's appeasing me directly, but I don't know what I don't know. Like, I don't know how good software is. I don't know what the capabilities are, because that's not my game now. So from Walla, from the ground up, that's been the approach, is like this ownership mentality of, like, if I owned the business and this was the problem, what would it look like if it was perfect? So I'm going to solve the problem, but I'm not just going to do exactly what someone's saying. Like, it'd be cool if we had a tap chip thing or something like that. What are we really solving for with that? It's going a little bit deeper.
So I guess those are more sort of like tactical things as opposed to more of a strategic approach on, how to run your business.
Well, to go back to your question as well, I think that, yes, the platform that you're on can create a constraint for you. Now, that's not to, like, put blame on a platform, because obviously there are limitations with any platform that you would have, and that's just how that works. The truth is, the entrepreneur has to find the expansive mentality and the holistic approach to their business to see how to solve the issues and create the situation that will benefit them and their clients for maximum impact on both levels, regardless of the platform. That being said, if we look at your stereotypical 1 to 3 location yoga studio as an example, these are people that are in a perpetual state of overwhelm because they're in a hard time right now. You have to have smart business acumen. Like we go back to 2004, opening a yoga studio in a city was a license to print money. You just opened up, you had a good location, your class was good, people came in. That was the end of the business conversation. If you do that now, you're dead. Like most yoga studios close in under 5 years. And the one stat that people don't talk about in that too is like 80% of yoga studios are started by women. Women-owned businesses close in first 5 years is more like 60 to 75%. They're even more likely to close down faster. So read into that however you will. But the point would be, when you're in this state of overwhelm, then you view the platform that you have partnered with as the limiting factor. You can't actually step out into the more expansive, bigger picture. And the idea that it's like, well, the platform doesn't transfer my email to an email system, so I would have to hire a staff to then manually download and then upload and then filter and tag and manage and whatever else. And the tech industry on the whole, especially when we look at it from like a marketing lens, and thinks that that is what should be done. They're like, well, if you own a marketing company, like you just go in and on your MailChimp and tag people and filter, or you're using HubSpot and you just do this and have your sales team follow up. Well, you don't have a sales team. You're running. You can't do that. So when you have that mentality approaching it and this overwhelm there, then it does become the limiting factor because you just won't do it. And that's why some businesses stagnate, don't grow, and then die. Which is, so it's like the difficulties on both sides, both the entrepreneur, but it is also the platform. So I think we're at a unique moment where Walla is an example of when you're building it with this sort of approach, you're looking at how do we make that, any of those friction points for your day-to-day operation, for your staff, for your clients, as low as possible based on the current technological ability. And what's the consumer expectation for that, so that it doesn't feel like the platform, if you're my consumer, the platform isn't between you and I. It's a tool that I'm using to actually get us closer together, not further apart. And up until that moment, I think that feeling has been quite prevalent in the industry.
One of the main friction points then you mentioned that you've sort of identified, and again, do they relate to you as a sort of as your yoga coach when you try and support other studios as well? So, yeah.
I think there are maybe 3 really major friction points that are ultra common, right? Because if you ask anyone in the industry, like, what are the problems that you have? Well, I need to get people in. I need to
fast.
I need to get them in fast. I need to sell and retain people, and then staff. Those are the 3 like major pain points. So working in reverse order, it's the simple stuff. It's not like a different feature. It's the specificity of all the little features that you would expect a platform to have. So for example, when you're signing a class in, we had the use case recently, like a U16 girls soccer team comes into a studio. Nowadays, like when I started in my studios too, people would show up 30 minutes before to get their spot in class and hang out. No,
3 minutes
it's
before.
like 3 minutes before. Like, if you've been here before, I've never done yoga, so at that moment, what are you going to do? Pull a bunch of paper out and get them to sign waivers and stuff? So you end up doing something funky, like writing their names down, putting them in class, and hoping that they don't ghost you afterwards or you don't get sued, right? So the simple step of like, how do we deal that? You can't have 50 iPads in a studio, and people are too clunky on that. So to get a new person registered in the Walla system, they just scan a QR code on their own phone. It's all up to date, so it autofills everything. They sign with their finger, so you don't need a waiver system, and they're in your system.
3 seconds, right?
So like 15 girls coming in 5 minutes before class, they're in the class right now, waiver signed, ready to go, and we can sell them something. So it's just that little step that, like, we have the technology to do this. That's why we're putting that stuff in place. And that's just one example.
So that's one example. Take us through some of the others, because I think this is a really interesting time, and we've just got to get better at our processes, and we're very behind. There are other industries. I think we went straight into the boom, right? So like you say, people were printing money. Then it got hard. We had to do business basics, which has been a lot of the theme of this summit, and one coming together. So just what are some of the special things, the specificity of perhaps existing features?
Yeah, I think the other 2 major ones would be during the client sign-in process, if you look at any boutique fitness, like where are you going to make your sales? They're going to happen online, but they are made in the human-to-human interaction prior to. Your email is like a component of that, text message is a component of that, but those aren't the sales technique, they're the sales amplifiers. Mm-hmm. So if I'm there and you as a human are physically in front of me, I need to, on the spot, in that little 5-minute gap before class, identify who you are, make a connection based on how you want to be connected with, not how I think it should be, and then identify if we should have a deeper conversation about how you find a habitual practice with me, and therefore a sale. Mm-hmm. So, and you need not just you to do that, because if we look at like, what's the product in a class-based business especially, it's not the yoga class, it's not the HIIT class, it's the teacher. The teacher's the product, or the front desk who's assigning the person in. So they can sit back and people can sign themselves in, but that is the biggest missed opportunity possible, because I'm not coming to you to do stretching postures. I'm coming to you for an experience, and I'm coming to you because you're here in front of me. So there is an unwritten expectation that you're going to engage me. The point being, the friction on the staffing side right now would be someone signs in, we have to wait for a screen to load. If we have multiple people signing in, we can't see them quick enough. We can't identify like which pass are they on, what type of person this is. Do I need to talk to them or not? Like, you can kind of identify that stuff, but you have to really train your staff to be hyper diligent. Mm-hmm. The simple thing like the class roster, it has a few really important features. There's something like a missing waiver. It just pops up as an alert, QR code, they sign it, you're done. Mm-hmm. Someone's new, it says new. Now that's an obvious one. The passed on, it says right there. Right beside their name, it tells you, this is how many classes Josh has taken. Mm-hmm. Like instantly. And then one unique feature is it has a personality quiz. So we actually partnered up with social psychologists to come up with like, how would we do a personality quiz that would categorize people in a simple way to give information to the staff so that they know, how does Emma want to be spoken to? Mm-hmm. So you can end up in one of these 4 categories. And this is not mandatory in the system, it's optional, but we think it's very powerful. Mm-hmm. So I can see right away, like, oh, you're a giver, or you're a doer, or you're a maverick. And it gives a maverick. Right. If you're a maverick.
Surprise.
Right. So like if you're a maverick, the way that you're going to respond is different. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to use your name. I'm going to say hello to you right away. I'm going to welcome you into class, but I'm kind of going to let you make your own decisions. I'm not going to engage you on like the super bubbly level of like, hey, have you tried this new class or whatever else? Because you're like, I've got it already, dude, because that's how you want to be interacted with. So instantly someone signs in and that's there for that to all happen. And it's so in your face that your staff would have to consciously ignore it to not receive this information and then engage the person in front of you. So now it's just easy for them, and you as a manager of any staff can have a very like easy human conversation. Dude, all the stuff's right here. Yeah. You didn't even talk to that person.
Is anyone else doing that psychometric, what is it, like a psychometric kind of profile?
Yeah, not built into the system firsthand. And this is custom built, unique in the Wallace system based on like who we know the clients are going to be and what the product is. Mm-hmm. So like there's tons of, you can do the Colby test or you can do the personality test. There's a lot of stuff out there. Mm-hmm. But this is angled around how do you want to be communicated with? And even there's a little more depth to this too, but how would I follow up with you is where this is going to help keep you motivated. Mm-hmm. And this, it sounds like, we're doing some spy stuff here a little bit, but if we think about it really, if I'm coming to you to take a yoga class, I'm coming for an experience, I'm coming to create a dream outcome, a bigger result. But during that process, what I'm really paying you for is actually accountability and motivation. Because again, I can do stretching postures right here. I don't need anything for that. I can buy some weights at my house, whatever. I can get a Peloton.
But I'm not.
But I'm not. So the real goal, or the real gold that is the accountability, the interaction, the community. That's the stuff that matters. But how you're motivated intrinsically versus me versus you is not exactly the same thing. So this is like one layer of how do we curate the client experience to be more in line with what they need to succeed. Because the other thing is, going back to the passionpreneur point, if I signed up because I'm passionate about my yoga classes, it's not because I'm not passionate about yoga itself. I'm passionate about the result that it got me and how I can see it help other people. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not starting to figure out how to really help you succeed, Because here's the other thing. I know you're not going to get it in one class or 2 or 5 or 10. Like, my goal is to help you find a habitual life practice so this becomes integrally part of who you are. If that's the journey, then it's my moral obligation to serve you to the best of my ability. And that's not just teaching a good class.
Yeah. It's funny, 2 things on that. One is we're now in this age of hyper-personalization as well. And that's being driven by everything, our social media feeds, Netflix, Amazon, the whole thing. So we're being shaped by that anyway. And this is answering that. So you're speaking to me in my language, you're speaking to Matt in his language. So there's that part. The other thing is we had the great pleasure of meeting Laura at the Connected Health and Fitness Summit earlier this year. And I really was captured by the behavioural change piece, which really is around the personality, who are you and how do you talk through? And I really applaud you for bringing that in, because I think it's going to change everything. We're also seeing it in other related areas. We hear it in the sensei in the way that they're coaching. They're working with behavioural neuroscientists, people who know how to put it in the positive and make it invitational rather than I'm shouting stuff at you that's going to miss most of the room, which was the old ways. And I think even 2 years ago, it was leave it on the floor, let's go harder. There was very much this whole thing. Now it's a broader church. We're all different people. We've all been much more personalised. And we don't even know it. That's what I'm finding in the fitness industry. We're not being shaped by the fitness industry. We're being shaped by the world and the big players and the big tech and the way that we're served in other ways, retail, hospitality, industries that are much older than us, because boutiques only what we were saying this morning, like maybe 20 years old. It's only
less than that, I think.
Boutiques.
The boutiques,
and the whole organised fitness is really only about 50 years old. So we're babies. So we should be looking sideways into, and the good brands are doing it. They're popping up on our phones, speaking our language, right through to the way that I'm marketed to. The images that Matt and I would get from your brand might be completely different based on our sex, our age, what we're into, how many times we look at things. Fascinating. So
I suppose in reverse, you're probably more aware of if somebody is marketing. Like I had somebody obviously went onto their website and they were picking me up, and they didn't do a good job at it, and it was like blatant, and so I suppose if you are doing it well, it's just seamless and it just goes in. Whereas if you're not, it's probably more likely to stand out in a bad way. Yeah,
I will delete you. You got me wrong.
Yeah,
Go away.
Yeah. To that point, it makes me think of as well, this idea of permission-based marketing is really on the forefront of where that's all going as well. And this sort of ties into that. It's like, people don't want to be sold, but I do want to buy something. I don't want to be sold your yoga class. I want you to show me, actually, not even show me or convince me or educate me. I would even say that. I need you to reassure me that what I think to be true is actually true.
Right,
and more, and better.
And more, exactly. So, and if I'm receiving that type of messaging, this whole idea of people opting out and unsubscribing and us being concerned, how do we not have them do that? It's like, don't send them bullshit.
Yeah.
That's how you do that. Curate the experience that's awesome for them. I always tell the story. I've got a guy, he's like a handstand coach. And I'm on his email serve for 4 or 5 years now. At one point,
it's a long handstand.
At one point, that's all he does is talk about handstands. At one point, he was sending me an email every single day. And I've never unsubscribed. I don't read all the emails. I only open maybe a quarter of them. But it doesn't bug me because I consciously opted in. When I do read it, I'm totally entertained. It's good information. It helped me with my handstand. So I'm still active on his list after that amount of time, but that has nothing to do with, it's just because the quality of the specific content that he's giving me
suits
is
what you're
actually
after.
there. It's what I'm after.
Yeah.
So we gotta flip this script around where when we're looking at permission-based and interacting with people and curating the experience, it's because the real purpose is for me to interact with you in a way that keeps you engaged. And I can make a fair assumption that that's why you come to my studio, is you need me to engage you. You want me to get you motivated and excited and keep that up, because it's really hard for you to get to the studio. I was just saying in the talk downstairs too, if you get your butt off your couch, you get yoga mat underneath your dog and get the hair off of it, and you find your spandex pants and you get in your car and you drive across town and you find a parking spot and you walk up the second flight of stairs and you make it into the studio on time for a class that you have scheduled, that's an insanely large action. So I'm not just looking to do some stretching postures at that point. There's more to it. But then that's where I'm coming into your envelope, and part of the experience and part of what you're doing, I want you to kind of take the reins a little bit and help keep me enthusiastic and engaged. But that's different person to person.
Yeah, I would agree.
So given us the acceleration, where are we in 3 years, which is probably like about 100 tech years, things going the way that they're going right now. Where do you think we're going? I mean, I think you're on something with the audio because, you've got a sensor, you've got all the way that you're talking to your people, the behavioural stuff, how I like to see them. Where will we be in 3 years?
Well, actually, the precursor to the answer to that would also be the third part with Walla. The feature is like the customer experience on the customer side to do simple things like signing up for class. Okay. So having something that's white labeled to your brand so that, because in this ties together.
Brands, eh? Right. It's like, we don't want that anymore.
Like, no, your customer doesn't care that you use Walla to sign in. What they care is it easy? Do you have an app that actually makes sense and works? Do I know what's going on, but it's not annoying? Can I book a class and can I bring a friend? Mm-hmm. Like all of those things are easy. Super easy, mobile responsive on your phone perfectly. The app works perfectly. In-app links, you can send a push notification if you want. Like all that stuff is just simple. And even just like simple things like the order at which you go through a checkout flow. This is really clear to me from a coaching standpoint. If I go to your site to book a class, I click book, but then the next thing it says is, oh, you're new here, fill out this waiver. That's the only moment you can really data collect from me. Therefore, on the business side, you make all these mandatory fields. But now it takes me 10 minutes to fill it out. I'm on my phone at the bus stop. The bus comes. I'm like, fuck it. And I'm out. Yeah. And you lose it all. And you don't even know that you lost the sale. Mm-hmm. Versus we just reverse it. So in Walla, you click, sign up, buy your intro, then book your class. But like once that first commitment's made, you're in. So our early data is showing like really insane book through rates and click through rates internally.
Frictionless, right? Getting rid of the pain points.
It's just those little things. And like we're talking about seconds, but these are big seconds. You know, it's not just time when we're talking about friction. It's the feeling while you're actually doing it.
And we live life this fast now, right? Like that's the pace.
Well, even Amazon, like you think about how easy it is once you're logged into Amazon, like to buy something. There's no like
send it to me.
Done and delivered.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So if that who's not using it? Yeah. That's the thing.
That's the standard.
That's
isn't
the
it?
standard.
His father's not using it. We had this conversation. That's a whole other principle.
Yeah.
But it's kind of insanity if you think about it, that like I can buy a pair of kitten socks on Amazon and have them to my door if I live in LA in the same day with one click. But to book a class down the street, it's going to take me 15 minutes of effort and then the waiver, and I've got to leave a website and there's no track. Like what? It's so out of whack. So that's exactly like we gotta flip that script around because it's dictated by the consumer. Like what are we as consumers used to? What do I want my experience to be? That's what we're solving for there. Right. So to go back to your question though, Emma, because I didn't forget it.
Yeah. No, I know you didn't. You're a good listener.
This experience as we're going through is realizing that the future of the industry are contextual digital communities for participating digitally. And the actual product that you are offering is an experience, not the class that you offer. So if that's true, both of those create two situations. One, you have to expand your consciousness of your business to realize literally every touch point. To your point about someone remarketing to you, but then you're like, I don't like the type of remarketing that I'm getting. That's part of your experience with that business. And now here we are on a podcast, hundreds of thousands of people are going to listen to this and be like, what business is that? So I make sure that I don't go to it. Right? So now the whole like all press is good press is not true when we're talking about it this way. On the other hand, you told me about, I went to the cycling studio and I just signed up and it was like so easy. And then right there, I could like bring a friend with me and everything else. Now you're telling me in a positive way, and that's going to amplify the word of mouth, which we know is the primary driver for boutique fitness altogether. So building the frictionless experience, curating it for the person, and making sure that we're understanding that the future of the industry is making the experience on the whole, including right from the advertisement, me watching a video, receiving your email, signing up for the class, I come to the desk, I get identified correctly, someone engages me, I have an epic class, which you've already got solved because we've been practicing that for 20 years. And then afterwards, the follow-up is flawless and on brand. At no point do I feel like I'm not part of you. Like, that's just going to be the standard.
Yeah.
It's actually silly that it isn't already, but that's really where we're going. And then the amplifier of that, the other thing I mentioned is private digital community being the future as well. It's the idea that content is king, but context is God. So everyone in the boutique fitness industry says they have a great community. What's happened is their product is aggregated people Then the people who might not have normally interacted start interacting, but it's kind of just a fluke that's happened rather than a business strategy itself. And moving forward, I would anticipate there'll be a lot of businesses where the actual strategy is the community, not the product that's being sold. And it's as simple as this. It's really easy for me to quit a gym pass. It's really hard for me to quit a community. And the context comes in because if I want to send you, just because yoga is easy for me to talk about, like you own a hot yoga studio, I come out of class, I need to rehydrate at home, I have a headache. That's a normal occurrence that can maybe happen for a new student. If I want to send you like, here's the smoothie recovery recipe or something like that, what I'm going to do, email that to you or text it? Like most of your clients aren't going to get it. Send you a link to then go watch it on YouTube. Like that's not really the way that people want to consume that information. And therefore, we're saving those types of communications for really important things. And that stuff doesn't happen. So where do we put that? If I join your private digital community, that's where that lives. And it makes sense contextually because it's part of the bigger conversation around the fact that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's an interesting way of looking at it, separating things. Yeah. Well, I think we're out of time, but
like, we could talk all day.
Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah,
amazing. I mean, thank you for being in the industry and just bringing professionalism and listening. Like I think with the yoga, like you're just so present, and I think it's all coming through in the work and the way that you articulated it for us. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, great to meet you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.